I was in the final week of wedding preparations, checking every last detail with my fiancé, James, when my phone rang. It was my mother, Carol, and her voice sounded different, colder than I had ever heard it before. "We will not be attending your wedding, Patricia," she said, without any warm greeting. "After what you did to Diana during her divorce, we cannot support you." My heart stopped beating for a moment as confusion flooded my mind. "What you did to your sister when she needed us most was unforgivable," she continued before hanging up. "Before I tell you how my sister's lies almost destroyed my wedding day and how I exposed her manipulation, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. If you have ever been falsely accused by family, hit that like button, because you will understand the betrayal I felt. But stick around, because what I discovered about my sister's deception will blow your mind." To understand how devastating this phone call was, you need to know about my family dynamics. I am Patricia, 31 years old, working as a marketing manager at a stable technology company. My relationship with James, a software engineer, had been solid for 3 years, and we had been engaged for 8 months. Our wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives, planned down to every detail at Riverside Gardens, with 150 guests expected to celebrate with us. My older sister Diana was 34 and had been married to Richard for 8 years. They had 2 beautiful children together, Emma, who was 6 years old, and Lucas, who was 4. Diana had always been the family member who needed to be the center of attention, especially during stressful times. Throughout our childhood, she had shown dramatic tendencies whenever things did not go her way, and our parents had always accommodated her need for extra emotional support. Diana had discovered Richard's emotional affair with a coworker 6 months before my wedding, and their divorce proceedings had become increasingly bitter. The custody battle was particularly ugly because Richard wanted shared custody of the children, while Diana was demanding full custody along with maximum alimony. The financial disputes over their house assets and child support had consumed her entire life for months. During this difficult time, I had been nothing but supportive of my sister. I made weekly phone calls, listening to her vent about the legal proceedings, babysat Emma and Lucas during her court dates, helped her research divorce lawyers, and provided emotional support through her many breakdown moments. I thought I was being the perfect sister, always available when she needed someone to lean on. Our parents, Carol and Bob, had always been protective of Diana because they viewed her as the more sensitive daughter. I had always been labeled as the strong one, the daughter who could handle everything on her own without needing much support or guidance. Our extended family, including Aunt Susan, Uncle Tom, and various cousins, absolutely adored Diana and saw her as someone who needed their protection and care. When planning my wedding, I had deliberately chosen Riverside Gardens because it had space for children to play during the reception. I wanted Diana's kids to feel comfortable and included in our celebration. Emma was supposed to be our flower girl, and Lucas was going to be our ring bearer. I had spent months coordinating with caterers to ensure there would be child-friendly food options and had even arranged for a separate quiet room where the kids could nap if needed during the long day. James's family was incredibly excited about welcoming me into their fold. His parents had embraced me immediately, and his sister had volunteered to help with any last-minute wedding preparations. The contrast between the warmth I felt from my future in-laws and the growing tension I sensed from my own family should have been a warning sign, but I was too focused on creating the perfect day to notice the red flags. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to Diana's increasingly bitter comments about my happiness. She had started making remarks like, "Must be nice to have no real problems," whenever I talked about wedding plans. She had tried to schedule what she called family emergencies during important wedding planning events, always needing immediate attention that would force me to cancel appointments with vendors or miss dress fittings. Her passive-aggressive remarks about wedding costs had become more frequent, especially when she was dealing with her own financial stress during the divorce proceedings. The moment my mother hung up, I immediately called Diana, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. When she answered, her voice was thick with tears and barely controlled emotion. "Diana, Mom said I did something terrible to you. What is she talking about?" Her response hit me like a physical blow. How could you betray me like that? I trusted you with everything. You were supposed to be my sister, and instead you stabbed me in the back when I was at my lowest point. I have no idea what you are talking about. Please tell me what I supposedly did. Through her sobbing, Diana laid out the most shocking accusations I had ever heard. She claimed that I had called her soon-to-be ex-husband Richard and told him about her past financial problems and family secrets. According to her story, I had revealed that Diana had borrowed money from our parents multiple times over the years, had a shoplifting incident in college that the family had covered up, and was generally unstable and just being dramatic about the emotional affair trauma. Diana, I have never spoken to Richard about anything private. I have not even talked to him in months. Do not lie to me, she screamed through the phone. He told his lawyer everything you said. My lawyer showed me the court documents where they are using your information against me. You advised him to fight for full custody because I am supposedly unstable. How could you do this to me? I was completely stunned. Nothing she was saying made any sense because I had never had any of these conversations with Richard. In fact, I could not even remember the last time I had spoken to him directly about anything more substantial than polite greetings at family gatherings. Over the next few hours, family members began calling me one by one, each conversation more devastating than the last. My father Bob called with disappointment heavy in his voice. Patricia, I am so disappointed in you. Family loyalty comes first, and you should never have interfered in Diana's divorce proceedings. Aunt Susan was next, her voice filled with accusation and anger. How could you sabotage your sister's divorce? Those children need stability, and you have made everything worse for them. Diana showed us the evidence, and we all saw what you did. My cousin Maria, who I had always been close to, called crying. Diana is devastated, Patricia. We are all standing with her during this difficult time. How could you be so cruel? Even Uncle Tom, who had always been like a second father to me, expressed his disappointment. Maybe you should postpone your wedding until this family crisis is resolved. Family should come before personal celebrations. Each phone call felt like another knife being twisted in my heart. I tried desperately to explain to each family member that I had never done anything wrong, that I had no idea what Diana was talking about. But every single person responded the same way. Diana showed us the evidence. We saw the court papers. Stop lying to us. The accusations were so detailed and specific that even I began to question my own memory. Had I somehow said something inappropriate during a casual conversation that had been taken out of context? Had I accidentally revealed family information without realizing it? But the more I thought about it, the more certain I became that none of these conversations had ever taken place. The wedding logistics quickly became a nightmare. Our venue coordinator called, asking about the sudden reduction in guest count, needing to know how many people to expect for catering purposes. I had to explain that most of my family would not be attending, which led to uncomfortable questions that I could not answer without revealing the family drama. Diana's children were no longer coming as flower girl and ring bearer, which meant we needed to completely restructure our ceremony plans. James's family began asking uncomfortable questions about why my family would suddenly decide not to attend our wedding. I was too embarrassed and confused to explain the situation fully, so I gave vague responses about family conflicts that left everyone puzzled and concerned. The emotional toll was devastating. I found myself crying myself to sleep every night, questioning everything I thought I knew about my family relationships. James suggested we postpone the wedding until we could resolve the family crisis, but I refused to let Diana's accusations derail our plans. Still, my confidence was completely shattered, and I felt more isolated and misunderstood than I had ever felt in my life. After 3 days of being treated like a pariah by my entire family, James finally convinced me that we needed to investigate what had actually happened. Something does not add up about this whole situation, he said. Let's find the truth before we accept that your entire family has turned against you. The first thing we realized was that I did not even have Richard's contact information. We had never exchanged phone numbers, and I had no way to reach him directly, even if I had wanted to interfere in his divorce proceedings. I checked my phone records going back 6 months, and there were absolutely no calls to any number that could have belonged to Richard. Through a mutual friend, I managed to get Richard's phone number and made what was probably the most awkward phone call of my life. "Richard, this is Patricia, Diana's sister. I need to ask you something important about your divorce proceedings." There was a long pause before he responded, and his voice sounded genuinely confused. "Patricia, who Diana's sister, I have not talked to you in over a year. Is everything okay? Richard, did I ever call you to discuss Diana's financial problems or family secrets? Did I tell you anything that your lawyer used in court against Diana? What? No, absolutely not. My lawyer never mentioned any information from family members. Where is this coming from?" As we continued talking, Richard revealed information that completely contradicted Diana's accusations. He told me that his lawyer had actually warned Diana's legal team that she was creating fake evidence for sympathy and that her tactics were unethical and potentially illegal. Diana had been making up stories about family conflict to make herself look like a victim in court, but none of it was being taken seriously by the legal system. "I have no idea about any financial problems or college incidents," Richard continued. "Diana never mentioned any of those things to me during our marriage, and they certainly never came up in our divorce proceedings." Armed with this information, I began gathering concrete evidence to prove my innocence. I requested copies of the court documents that Diana claimed mentioned information I had provided. When Richard's lawyer confirmed that no family information had ever been submitted as evidence, I knew we were dealing with something much more sinister than a simple misunderstanding. I got detailed phone records from my service provider showing every call I had made and received over the past 6 months. The evidence was crystal clear. There had been no communication between me and Richard during this entire period. I also asked Richard to forward me any text messages or emails he might have received from me. And of course, there were none. When I examined the screenshots Diana had shown our family as proof of our supposed conversations, I noticed inconsistencies that proved they were fake. The phone interface styles were different between messages, the timestamps were inconsistent, and some of the language used was not how I naturally spoke or wrote. With all this evidence compiled, I arranged a meeting at my parents' house to present the truth. I walked in with printed phone records, screenshots of my call history, and written confirmation from Richard's lawyer that no family information had been used in the divorce proceedings. Initially, my parents were defensive. "Why would Diana lie about something this serious?" my mother asked. "She seemed so devastated when she told us what you had done." I methodically went through each piece of evidence, showing them the time-stamped phone records that proved I had never called Richard the lawyer's statement, confirming that no family information was part of the legal case, and the obvious inconsistencies in the fake text messages Diana had created. Slowly, the reality began to sink in for my parents. "But she seemed so genuinely hurt," my father said, his voice trailing off as he processed what the evidence meant. When my parents confronted Diana together, she initially tried to maintain her story, but when faced with irrefutable proof that she had been lying, she finally broke down and admitted the truth. "I just needed family support," she sobbed. "Patricia has everything perfect while my life is falling apart. I needed everyone to be on my side for once." She confessed that she had fabricated all the evidence because she was desperate to keep custody of her children and felt that having family support would strengthen her case in court. "Everyone always loves Patricia more," she admitted through her tears. "I needed to be the victim for once. I needed people to choose me over her." The revelation created even deeper divisions within our family. Some family members, like my parents and cousin Maria, immediately called to apologize once they learned the truth. Others, however, doubled down on their support for Diana. Aunt Susan said, "Diana is going through a hard time. She made a mistake, but family should forgive family. Do not be vindictive about this." Uncle Tom surprised everyone by taking a strong stand in support of me. "Lying is lying regardless of the circumstances," he said. "What Diana did was calculated and cruel, and Patricia deserves better from her family. The week of my wedding became chaotic as family members changed their minds about attending. Some people who had initially refused to come now wanted to attend, while others who had been planning to come decided to stay away because they were uncomfortable with the family conflict. The venue was confused about the final head count, and I struggled with whether to uninvite people who had not initially supported me. In a final desperate attempt to disrupt my wedding, Diana called the venue 2 days before the ceremony, claiming that we had not paid our deposits and that the wedding should be canceled. Fortunately, our wedding coordinator knew us well enough to call us directly instead of taking Diana's word, and we were able to resolve the situation quickly. On the morning of my wedding, the reality of Diana's betrayal was written in stark numbers. Instead of the 150 guests we had originally planned, for only 89 people were actually attending. My parents had decided to come after seeing the evidence of Diana's lies, but half of our extended family had chosen to stay away until the family healed from this crisis. The biggest change was that my father felt too conflicted to walk me down the aisle, so Uncle Tom stepped up to fill that role. "I would be honored to walk you down the aisle," he had said the night before. "You deserve to have someone who believes in you by your side on your special day." James's sister Emma had volunteered to serve as my maid of honor when my original bridesmaid, who was Diana's close friend, backed out at the last minute. James's family had rallied around me with incredible warmth and support, and his grandmother even gave me her own family heirloom bracelet to wear as my something borrowed. The ceremony itself was smaller than we had planned, but it felt more intimate and authentic because everyone present truly wanted to be there. There were no people in attendance who were silently judging me or harboring doubts about my character. Diana was completely absent, having chosen not to attend despite receiving an invitation through our parents. During the reception, Cousin Maria approached me with tears in her eyes. "Patricia, I owe you a huge apology. I should have questioned Diana's story more carefully instead of just believing everything she told us. I am so sorry for doubting you." James's father gave a speech about how marriage is about choosing your family, not just being born into one. "Patricia is gaining a family today that will always stand by her," he said, "and we are gaining a daughter who exemplifies loyalty and integrity." As I looked around the reception venue, I realized that this smaller wedding actually felt more meaningful than the large celebration we had originally planned. Every person present was someone who truly supported our marriage and believed in our happiness. The first month after our wedding should have been pure bliss as we adjusted to married life, but the family drama continued to intrude on our peace. Even during our honeymoon, I received calls from various family members trying to get me involved in ongoing conflicts related to Diana's custody battle. Diana's legal situation had actually gotten worse once the court discovered her pattern of creating false evidence and manipulating family members. Richard ended up winning shared custody, partially because the judge noted Diana's dishonesty during the proceedings. Instead of taking responsibility for her actions, Diana blamed me for ruining her life, even though the truth had simply been revealed. 3 months after the wedding, my parents approached me asking for help in healing the family rift. They wanted me to be the bigger person and forgive Diana so that we could all move on from this difficult period. I had to establish firm boundaries about what kind of relationship I was willing to have going forward. "I will maintain relationships with people who respect truth and treat me with basic decency," I told them. "But I will not pretend that what Diana did was acceptable just to make everyone else comfortable." Some extended family members slowly began reaching out to rebuild relationships once they fully understood what had happened. Others maintained their distance, seemingly uncomfortable with confronting the fact that they had chosen the wrong side and had treated me unfairly. Diana continued her manipulation attempts for months after the wedding. She created new lies about how I was supposedly turning the family against her and tried to use her children as emotional leverage to force a reconciliation. She spread rumors in our community about my supposed vindictiveness, apparently unable to accept that people were making their own judgments based on her behavior, not my influence. Working with a therapist helped me understand the manipulation tactics Diana had been using for years and gave me tools to protect myself from similar situations in the future. I learned that supporting someone does not mean enabling their lies or accepting abusive behavior, even when that person is family. 6 months after our wedding, Diana made an attempt at reconciliation by having her children call me. "Aunt Patricia, Mommy misses you," little Emma said when Diana put her on the phone. It was heartbreaking, but I knew that Diana was using her own children as pawns in her manipulation game. I maintained a kind but distant relationship with Emma and Lucas, seeing them only during supervised visits with my parents present. I made it clear that private family discussions were off limits, and I would not engage with Diana directly about anything more substantial than basic pleasantries. 1 year after our wedding anniversary, I reflected on how much my life had changed. James and I were thriving in our marriage, and we had just learned that we were expecting our first baby. My relationship with my parents had slowly rebuilt, but it now included clear boundaries about not discussing Diana or expecting me to participate in enabling her behavior. I had completely separated from extended family members who had never apologized for their treatment of me during the wedding crisis. Life was peaceful without the constant drama and manipulation that had characterized my relationship with Diana for years. Interestingly, Diana had remarried within 18 months of her divorce, but according to family reports, she was already repeating the same patterns of behavior with her new husband. Some people never learn from their mistakes. They just find new people to manipulate. The most important lesson I learned was that truth will always surface eventually, and the people who truly love you will seek that truth, rather than blindly choosing sides based on emotions or loyalty. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting that family relationships will change forever, and that is not your fault when other people choose lies over honesty. Real family stands by you during false accusations, not just after proof of your innocence emerges. The people who demanded evidence of my innocence before they would believe me had never really been on my side to begin with. They say blood is thicker than water, but I learned that day that integrity is thicker than blood. Sometimes the family that chooses to stand by you matters more than the family you were born into. And the people who demand proof of your innocence were never really on your side to begin with. Have you ever been falsely accused by a family member who turned everyone against you? How did you handle the situation when people you trusted chose to believe lies over your character? Share your story in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with your own experiences of family betrayal. Subscribe for more real-life stories about standing up for yourself when the people closest to you let you down, and please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that their worth is not determined by whether family members believe them, without proof. Remember, you can only control your own actions and integrity, not other people's choices to believe lies or seek truth. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who would rather believe comfortable lies than uncomfortable truths.